Dracula is back, but this time his resurrection waited a full century, and the Prince of Darkness has landed in present-day 1972. Geez, we're actually closer to 2072 now. So yeah, that's the pitch. Christopher Lee in 1970s London, except he never leaves his house. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Groovy, man.
This is a horror movie podcast, and today we are returning to a franchise that we've been working on for, I think, 4 years now. It's taken ages, but we're here today to talk about Dracula AD 1972, which is, I think, the 7th in the franchise, something to that effect.
Right.
Yeah. This one came out, as you'd expect, in 1972, but I'll mention it because you never know. It could have been a weird thing where it was like 1972, but it came out a year late or something and missed the boat. But the gimmick for this one, as is obvious from the title, is that this is going to bring Christopher Lee's Dracula to what at the time was present day London. So that's the thing. We'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get to the spoilers, and if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button. Helps out a bunch if you do. Give us 5 stars in your podcast app of choice, and you can support us over at Patreon and get some bonuses, but I'll tell you about that at the end of the episode. So we were kind of positive on the last one. I think we found Scars of Dracula to be kind of decent and have some fun qualities, which I don't think you remember, given the blank expression you're staring at me, Tim.
Yeah, for the most part, they all kind of are very merged and melted in my mind. Gun to my head, I probably couldn't tell you much about any of the last couple of ones we did.
But you remember there was some you liked more than others, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I remember, there were some that were a bit more of a slog, and then there are a few that like every now and again be like, oh yeah, this would have like a, like an interesting idea, or oh, they introduce like a character in here that's kind of cool or whatever. Yeah. I don't think I could tell you much plot wise, but I do think, like you were saying, last one I remember being a bit more of a positive discussion than some of the other ones.
Yeah. I think Taste the Blood of Dracula, that was the 5th one. That had a fun start, but maybe kind of lost its way as it went along. I think 4 and 6, which were Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, and then the last one was Scars of Dracula. I think those two were much more fun than either Brides or Prince of Darkness were, which were 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. I'm showing off my memory here, since Tim's so bad. I'm like look at me. I'm like a prodigy, a wunderkind, if you will.
Sure.
Only in comparison to you, I'm not that impressive. It's just, you're just making me look good, Tim. It's okay.
Okay.
My Renfield, Timothy.
You
can start calling me Master anytime you want, Tim. I'm not going to stop you. It's up to you when that kicks in. All on you.
I mean, once you start sending me the money, I'll call you whatever you want. Like, I don't call anyone Master for less than like $10 an hour. Come on.
Tim, I really hope you've not been calling your boss at work Master. I think it's a bit awkward. Feels oddly sexual in a way that I don't think you want to be putting out there.
That's true. Yeah, I'm not looking to enact some secretary scenario. If you're familiar with that film.
I am. It's a very good movie. It's a fantastic film, actually, starring Maggie Gyllenhaal and David Spader.
Spade Man.
Yeah. He's always in weird sex movies, though. That was kind of his shtick. He's in Cronenberg's Crash, which is about people who are getting off on the fact that they're in car crashes. Sure. Not to be confused with the movie that solved racism that won Oscars.
Right. One of the first movies to solve racism. I've never checked Cronenberg's Crash out. I've heard it's pretty gnarly, though. Or at least, I mean, from the premise, it sounds pretty gnarly.
I mean, you'll be feeling something the entire time. Like you're in a filmmaker's hands when Cronenberg is guiding you through a movie. I don't love everything he's made. It's definitely up and down. But anyway, we're not here to talk about David Cronenberg today. As far as I know, he had nothing to do with Dracula AD 1972. So this one starts off in the past, right? I guess it does this thing where it's almost at the end of another Dracula movie that never happened, where it's like, oh, Dracula versus Van Helsing, and their deaths happen, and then, cut to present day, 1972, and how is he going to come back and cause chaos, and all of his usual vampire shtick that he does. So, I mean, that's the basic premise of it. We'll get into it. Obviously, there's descendants as well of Van Helsing in the film. His great-granddaughter is one of the main characters, and her grandfather, which I assume is just Van Helsing's grandson, is played by Peter Cushing. So we have like a reason for other actors to be around as well. But it is present day, which is a bit of a gimmick, given that every single movie up until now has been set in the past. If anything, it's wild they waited till this number of movies to actually finally do this. Feels like it would be the easy thing to do to save money early on, just to shoot it in a contemporary setting so you don't have to worry about period pieces or what. Having said that, though, a lot of it's just in the forest or an old castle somewhere, so I guess it didn't cost that much in the grand scheme of things. But
yeah, I mean, like I said before, I'm not really much of a scholar when it comes to Hammer stuff, but I always thought their gimmick was, kind of the more period, gothic kind of settings.
I think they definitely did a bunch of movies set in present day. I just think their most famous stuff tends to be your Draculas, your Frankensteins, your witch hunt movies, and most of them tend to be period pieces. But they have, I remember them doing a thriller called The Nanny. I remember that being in one of the box sets, and that was just a present day story about a evil nanny. So, I mean, they had some modern day, for the time, of course. Obviously, now they're 50 plus years old, but...
Right.
But hey, anyway, that's the premise. We'll save the rest of the plot for spoilers. We'll get to the business. Tim, what did you think of Dracula AD 1972?
So, I'd say I was actually digging the movie for, quite a bit in the beginning. Like you said, it has this, I think it's kind of like a silly but kind of fun opening with, Dracula fighting Van Helsing and stuff, and then the way Dracula gets defeated is pretty funny. And then when it cuts to present day, and of course present day being 1972, when we have the introduction to I guess our main characters. I don't know what you would call them, if they're hippies or beatniks or countercultural
group of friends. I mean, I was thinking hippies at first, but I mean, I don't know. We're kind of we're not in the 60s anymore, so we're kind of, I guess, a little bit past hippies and more into just
they're basically just counterculture people that are trying to go up against squares, and I guess people that they seem to kind of like to indulge in freaking people out and or whatever, at least from this opening scene. I can't take it, and I think this opening scene is actually pretty fun. And then I don't know, I felt like the movie kind of came to a grinding halt once Dracula actually comes back. I don't know, that I started to it started to feel a bit more sluggish to me, and I just wasn't really caring as much about what was going on. I can't really say I was too big a fan of the ending. I feel I don't know, Christopher Lee is so great as Dracula. He just has that grandiose, intense presence, and he looks great as a part. But it's not necessarily uncommon for these movies to kind of have his role in it seem less and less, and I feel he doesn't get a lot to do here. And then I don't know, I feel he doesn't feel as menacing to me, and I was trying to debate if I want to talk about stuff or if it's going to be too spoilery. I'll just kind of be very vague about it. But the way he's defeated and stuff, I'm just kind of oh, come on, this is a little weak to me. Not to say it's there weren't some okay or fun parts or whatever, but overall it's a little bit of a mixed bag for me. It kind of started off good and then went a little bit downhill. I don't think it was ever horrible or anything, but at the start I was oh, this might be pretty good, and then I think by the end I was just I guess that's okay.
Yeah, I probably think this is the weakest one since Prince of Darkness, and it's for a couple of reasons. But I think one of the big ones is your gimmick of this is that you're bringing Christopher Lee's Dracula out of the 1870s or whatever it is, and you're bringing him into the present day. So immediately, I hear that premise and I'm thinking, oh, I'm imagining him walking down a busy London street. Cars going by, him like stalking in a very different environment, and
he's like playing Pac-Man or something. It's like, what is this?
I wasn't thinking of that, but the point being is that to use the set and then really show how different it is and how maybe he has to adapt what he's doing to the new world that he's in. And this movie makes the wild choice to have him never leave an old church. So you never see him in present day London. Not really. You never see him interacting with anything modern or anything. You only see him in one location, and it feels like a movie where Christopher Lee said, I'll shoot for 2 days, and they set all of his scenes in one location so that they could get all of his stuff done as quickly as possible. And the weird thing is because I felt this a lot in this one, is it really felt like they were trying to work around just not having him for most of it. So his appearances felt very limited. But the last one actually was the opposite. The last one, I felt like he had the most to do that he'd done since maybe the original, like Scars of Dracula, because we spend so much time like with a couple arriving at his house and spending the night, and he's attacking the women, and it felt like he had a lot to do. There was a lot of stuff build up to his actually going for the kill and stuff like that. Here, I mean, other than the opening prologue in the past where he's fighting Van Helsing, every scene he has, and it's only like 3 scenes after that point, are all in the same old church. He never leaves this grounds, and instead we follow other characters that are working for him on the outside doing stuff. But on top of all that, the plot kind of gets a bit murky in the back half, where I was kind of questioning who knew what and who was like doing what, and this entire group of friends, it feels like at least 2 or 3 of them just kind of disappear from the movie halfway through. They don't get killed, they don't help save the day or anything, they're just not there anymore, and it felt really weird. We spent time setting up, particularly one character who's kind of like the jokester character who's always wearing like a robe. I thought, okay, he's quite memorable, he's going to be a big deal as the movie goes on. And halfway through the movie, he just stopped showing up. He's just not there anymore. It's really weird. Aside from that, it kind of feels like it pivots to like the police side of things in the back half. And honestly, them looking into things is so dull. And it didn't have to be. I actually think the idea of doing like a modern police detective story where the twist is that it's a vampire they're hunting, and maybe they just haven't accepted that yet. It actually sounds like a fun story, but this movie does nothing with that premise. It does nothing with it. So I agree. There's kind of some okay setup at the start, but once Dracula shows up, it feels like it just goes into this weird autopilot of like just the same old tropes. It doesn't matter we're in present day. It never becomes a factor in anything. And the 2 ways that I thought it might become a factor is, one, he has to hunt in a different way because he's in a city. He never goes into the city. He has someone else do his hunting for him, so that's irrelevant. And 2, the idea of a modern police force investigating the... Because one of the most exciting things I think that happens in the movie is that the first person he bites is found as a dead body, and it's like, okay, this is a murder investigation. I'm like, oh, that's maybe an interesting angle, is modern police trying to solve a murder. And it never becomes anything remotely what it could be. So yeah, it's kind of a dud. It's not the worst thing. It's not painful, it's not torture or anything. It just, you realize about halfway through that it's just kind of a really middle of the road movie that doesn't really do anything to stand out. And it's a shame because it felt like the inherent premise of it should have allowed it to do some fun, interesting new things that they haven't done with this version of Dracula before. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, yeah, if I had to guess, I think you're correct in that. They probably had him for like a very small window, or maybe because of the budget or whatever, they could only afford him for a small time. So they just had to do everything pretty quick. Because when you hear the premise, like the fun thing you start thinking about is seeing him interacting with people in modern day. And then especially like with all of the characters and stuff they set up, I'm like, oh, like, yeah, these bunch of weirdos are going to be the ones that are, you're going to be fighting and going up against Dracula and blah, 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 instead of like the usual kind of, like stuffy, old timey, dudes or whatever that we're used to. Like, that sounds like a lot of fun to me. But yeah, like you said, so many characters just kind of feel like they fade off into the background or whatever, or yeah, they're mostly just interacting with like the other kind of his human, like servants or whatever, instead of him. So yeah, unfortunately, a lot of wasted potential. I do agree that, like, I think it is, as much as it's not great, I do think it is like an easier watch than some of them. Yeah, like I think you mentioned, like, yeah, 2 and 3 felt like they were maybe a bit more boring or hard to sit through. Yeah, like it's not the worst thing in the world, but it does just feel like it did kind of squander a lot of the more interesting aspects that it could have had.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like a little period in the middle where it felt like, oh, it's going to be more of like a killing people off one by one story, and I was kind of into the potential of that, but it got very messy very quickly. And as much as I was happy to see Peter Cushing, almost everything once he got more involved with the police just started getting into like just boring territory where nothing was really going on other than just the same old vampires exist, Do they have puncture marks on their necks? That's because vampire. So, same old shit, pretty much, which is a shame. So, hey.
Yeah. And then there isn't really like a ton of like gore or deaths or anything again, when there is like some blood or something, they have that like, really bright like neon red blood, which is always like really cool to see in these movies. But again, like, a lot of that stuff is kind of few and far in between in this one.
Yeah, it looks pretty fake, which is funny because at one point a character says that blood looked pretty real to me because he's trying to be convinced that it's fake, and I'm like, I don't know, buddy. Maybe in this movie's universe it looked like real blood, but out here in the real world it looked like paint. But take that for what you will. I wish I liked it more. I was hoping it'd be more fun because they kind of. I just had a quick look on Wikipedia because I was curious if they were filming this at the same time as like another one, and that's why Christopher Lee was like so absent. Is like, they were sort of like splitting them between two movies or something. I didn't see anything like that. I did see though that this and the next one, the Satanic Rites of Dracula, which is kind of the last one. There's technically something in the continuity afterwards called the Seven Golden Vampires or something like that, but the last one with Dracula is the next one, and apparently this and that one were greenlit together as a pair because, I don't know, something else was successful and they were like, hey, we'll have 2 more of those. So whether or not that means that the next one's going to be of similar quality, or maybe they had to rush this one to get to that one, or what, I don't know, but we'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I don't think I saw the next one. I did see that, Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires one before, which, I mean, that was a long time ago though, so I don't remember too much about it, but I remember being kind of disappointing because, like, when you hear like, oh, like a kung fu like Dracula movie, like that sounds amazing, and then unfortunately ends up not being as fun as you want it to be. But I mean, it's been a while though, so maybe if we get around to doing that one too, maybe it'll surprise me. But
we may as well. I mean, I know it's not good Dracula in it, but we may as well finish off the complete set, because that would be it. That'd be everything pretty much. Aside from Christopher Lee was in like a non-Hammer Dracula movie during the middle of all this that was kind of like unofficial.
Oh, really?
So maybe worth going back and doing that if it's easily accessible. But we'll look into that as well when the time comes. I'm actually looking forward to being done so we can start the Hammer Frankensteins, because at least the first one of those is really good. I've not seen the sequels, but
yeah, I've seen like 2 or 3 of them, and from the ones I've seen, I've actually really, really quite enjoyed them. So that'll be fun to get to.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So anyway, I guess we'll just give the spoiler warning here, so we can just talk about the movie a bit more freely. So spoilers for Dracula AD 1972. Let's get that out of the way. First thing I want to talk about, and I'm sure this was like mind-blowing in 1972 because no one thought of it perhaps, but as soon as someone said someone was called Alucard, I was like, wait, excuse me? Alucard? I'm not even a Castlevania guy, but I know about Alucard.
I'm fairly certain that Alucard was in a Universal sequel, like maybe like Son of
Really?
Dracula or
Oh,
something.
interesting. Okay.
I'm very I'm like 99 point something percent sure, but yeah, we'll see. But I mean, yeah, as a huge Castlevania fan, that definitely gives me a little bit of a pop, even if it does give like a little bit of Troll 2 Nilbog kind of vibes when the characters like Alucard backwards is Dracula, like.
Yeah, well, it's funny because, like, well, to be fair, Alucard is a much cooler sounding word than Nilbog, so let's just say that up
Right,
front.
yes.
But secondly, to your point, no one actually says it out loud, oh, that's Dracula backwards. Instead, they show it by having Peter Cushing sit down. He's written out the word Dracula or Alucard, and he's got like arrows pointing to where the letter goes, and it's like I'm like, you're doing this as if it's an anagram. It's not an anagram. It's literally just back the way. Because what I thought was going to happen is that it would be written down and someone would see it in a mirror or something like that. You'd see the reflection and it'd be like, oh, red rum, like like one of those moments. But no, he just kind of figures it out and is like, well, that means something. Yep, it sure does. It sure does. I don't want to do the Universal Draculas, but I don't want to go straight into them after we've done the Hammer Draculas. I want to switch over to like a Frankenstein or something, just because that's a lot of Draculas in a row.
Oh no, of course. Did we never do the first one at least, or?
I actually don't think we have. No, I don't think we have.
Okay, surprising. All right.
No, we did the first Mummy. We never did the sequel, so we need to go back and do those. So we've got there's plenty to do of those. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. As bad as they may be, Tim, we must trudge through the valley of darkness.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yes, well, maybe after we've done Blumhouse's Lee Cronin's The Mummy, we'll think about old mummy movies.
We can't wait.
So yeah, I mean, so the opening of this is the set in the past, and it's basically like mid-fight. It's already started. We're in day for night, which is like one of the worst things about these Hammer movies actually, is how much day for night crap there is. But they're fighting on a wagon, and the horses like run off, and they're fighting. And the ultimate way that Dracula dies here is kind of like is it a Reichenbach fall from Sherlock and like Moriarty both going out together? It's a little bit like that, where they both die here, but they don't fall off a cliff all dramatic. After the wagon crashes into a tree, Dracula gets up and the wagon wheel has impaled him. So he actually gets killed by the wagon wheel.
Yeah. No, are they like going for comedy here? Because like, I don't know, to me, I thought this was like pretty funny. Like it's almost like slapstick or something.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny as well, but I mean, I don't know. It's 1972. Maybe this was them trying to, like, I think Hammer's movies were always a little campy, so it's not like they were like taken like super serious at the time even. But I don't know if they were going for outright comedy.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense, but yeah, I actually thought this was pretty dumb, but like in a fun, stupid way. But
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like when you look at like Christopher Lee as Dracula, like to me it seems like like this is supposed to be like a really intense, like scary version of Dracula, whatever. And I definitely it's been like that in some of the other movies, but I don't know. Like to me here, he just feels very like silly, like a lot of the deaths is just like accident prone, like him just like falling into like a stake. Like even the ending is like kind of like that. Like I don't know, it just feels very silly to me.
Yeah, well, I think the ending had potential because I thought it was going to be smarter the way that Van Helsing like put him into the trap, but we'll get to it. But it's a lot sillier than what it could have been. So a young man who we find out later is Alucard, or now to be fair, the movie never made it clear to me if Alucard, because we see this guy pick up the ashes of Dracula, right? The ashes are lying there after he's been staked, and he puts them into like a test tube. And we see him like as they're burying Van Helsing in this church, he's like outside the church like burying some of these ashes, although not all of them, because he also has a test tube of them still in present day, so I don't know what's going on there. But I never understood, the movie never really made it clear if this guy was somehow immortal or if he was just a descendant of the guy who got the ashes in the first place, you know, the one in present day. Like, is this the same guy, or is this his like great grandson who's just, he's been teaching the ways of like, yes, we in 100 years time resurrect Dracula. It's really important that we resurrect the Dark Lord.
Yeah, that's definitely a little weird. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on with that.
I mean, I guess with Van Helsing's grandson just being Peter Cushing, I guess it's implying the same thing here, is that he's just the great grandson or whatever. Yeah. So fair enough. Honestly, the weirdest thing in this movie, to be honest, from a time perspective, is when they said, you know, once like what's her name? Jessica Van Helsing. Jessica? Yeah. Once she sees the grave of her great grandfather and she's like, oh my god, he died 100 years today. I was like, oh yeah, it's only 100 years. That's so weird, because we're in the 70s. And because I'm thinking like 1870 feels like so absurdly long ago. And it's still pretty long ago, even in 1970, because 100 years is a long time. But it still felt like, oh, that's not actually as big of a jump as I might have had in my head. Like, I was kind of thinking it was like 300 years, not 100 years. But yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. The world changed a lot in those 100 years.
Yeah. I was trying to think of like I feel like growing up, you would hear like, oh, like the last, you know, surviving member of like this war died or whatever, and you'd be like I don't think, I'm trying to think of like when the like last person from like the Civil War died or something, but yeah, like you'd hear like a news story like that or something, you'd be like, oh Jesus, like they're like, that seems so long ago, like there's still people like alive from then, but yeah, like you never know.
Yeah, well, I remember when I was in school in the 90s, right, is, you know, primary school, and we'd be watching like documentaries in class about World War II, and it'd be full of interviews of people who were alive in World War II, because a lot of people were still alive as old people at the time. But obviously, I don't know how true that is now. I feel like we've moved on enough time that there's probably some left, but not a lot. I would reckon.
Yeah, yeah, because I guess maybe if someone was about 20-ish around that time, then they could be like turning like 100-ish or something like that. That'd probably check out, but
yeah,
like probably not a lot.
Yeah, not a lot. Yeah, for sure. So it's just interesting to think about. There was actually a story about a turtle who died a couple of weeks ago, who was like 190 or something like that. And like there was the first photograph with this turtle was like from like 1880 or something like that, and like he's lived through everything that's happened in the last. I was like, gee, it's so weird to think of this same creature been alive that entire time.
Yeah, I think the one I always see like floating around online sometimes is like there's like a specific type of shark that can live to be like over 200 years old or something. So like, yeah, there's one that I guess they're keeping track of or something, and it's like, oh yeah, like this shark, this specific one was like still alive like before cars were invented and stuff, which is just like, what, like how is that possible?
Hey, here's a fact that'll blow your mind. Sharks are older than trees.
Oh, I think I've heard that before. That does seem like insane.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the Earth without trees everywhere, but yeah, there was a time when sharks already existed and there was no trees. Wild.
I mean, that'd be a great sci-fi movie, Sharks versus Trees.
Wait, how are the trees fighting back?
Have you seen The Happening?
How are the sharks getting to the trees? Don't say tornado. Do not say tornado. I don't want to hear it. Oh dear. You can tell this movie's so interesting that we're going down this line of tangent. So anyway, when we skip to present day, we get a very long party sequence where, and this did make me laugh a lot. I think it goes on too long, but it did make me laugh how one of the first things we see is, because we've got all these people who are very 1972 kind of college age people, and one's dancing on a piano, one's doing this, so there's a little band playing. But there's also like some rich people who look uncomfortable, but the one that made me laugh is that there's a girl dancing on the table, And then right behind him, you see this rich woman just crying her eyes out into her husband's shoulder, like she's just horrified that this is happening in front of her. And that really made me laugh. It turns out that these friends kind of showed up because the young guy who's in this rich family invited some people for a get-together, but all these people who are not actually his friends showed up instead and basically took over and started throwing like a 70s hippie party. So eventually the police show up, but that's the whole thing.
Yeah, no, this is fun. I think it's like a nice introduction to the characters and stuff. And I like that it kind of starts off, like, I'm not really quite sure what's going on. It's like, yeah, there's all these like, stuck up like snooty rich people that look disgusted. And then like, yeah, these like freaks, just like blowing their minds with their crazy dancing. And I couldn't tell if the band was like part of them, like the people that were singing and stuff, if they were also.
I would assume so, which is really funny if they showed up with all their instruments and like we're just setting up shop here and going to town. Now, to be fair, in a real world sense, I'm siding with the rich people. The thought of a bunch of people coming into my house and just like having a party against my will makes me want to start blasting, right?
Oh no, I mean that was a fun. I mean, it's a dark thought, but I did think about that, like, oh yeah, so even though you think of like 70s as being in some ways like more dangerous time or whatever, but like thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, today like someone would have just taken out some type of weapon and claim self-defense and like just like kill these people or beat the shit out of them or whatever, and depending on what state you're in, would probably very much get off. But yeah, it was funny.
Well, I think if you're horny, if you're in a horny state, you'll definitely get off.
Of course, yeah. I mean, if this was like a role play scenario where, yeah, they're role playing like this house invasion scenarios, I mean, that's totally fine as long as everyone's like consenting and understands the intent and they're doing it safely and everything.
I feel like role playing tends to be between two people, Tim, not like 50.
Well, sometimes if the scenario you want requires more people, then you're gonna have to recruit some people, and obviously there's sites and stuff online where you can recruit people, and everything is checked out beforehand, so it's all safe and above board and everything.
You seem to know a lot about these sites where you can recruit people for your sick fantasies. Very strange.
But I think there's like a lot of fun stuff here. I like, the rich kid's mom is like, oh, how could you bring these people to my home? He's like, I swear they're not my friends. And then like, I like the friends arguing about when they should leave, and like they kind of like they have everything figured out. Like, oh wait, no, they're calling the police now, and it's a Saturday night, and it's busy, and this street is kind of far off, so it'll probably take about 8 minutes, so we should be fine. And the other one's like, oh, we gotta leave by 4 minutes, and then all that stuff is fun. There's a couple they're just like having sex under a table, and then eventually the police come, and then there's like the one like hard dude that's just like, nah, I can't just leave without breaking something, and he has to take this little statue.
Well, he does a little bit. So this is Johnny Alucard, right? Johnny Alucard is our kind of villain of the movie, other than Dracula, and he goes over to this little statue, he picks it up, and he starts pretending as if he's going to drop it, and the rich like mom's like, oh, my statue, I love my statue, don't do it. And he plays along, and then he's like, oh, okay. And he puts it on the table, but then just as he's walking out the door, he just puts his hand back in and just knocks it off the table, and it smashes. And I'm like, this is how we're setting up that he's a villain. He's just, we're destroying this rich lady's statue. So, yeah.
You get the sense that like everyone else was like, all right, this is all in good fun, but like, let's get out of here. And then he was like, no, I have to do some damage before I leave.
I mean, even the way he's sitting with his hat kind of tilted the entire scene makes it very clear he's the dangerous one. He's the one that he's playful now, but like he's the one we're probably going to have to look out for later. And sure enough, they're hanging out at their local like cafe that they like to go to, and they basically are like, hey, we need something else fun to do. What do we do this weekend? What do we do? And of course, Johnny Alucard's got a banger of an idea. He thinks it'll be well fun. He's like, why don't we do a black mass and conjure Beelzebus? And they're like, sounds like a riot, Johnny. Let's give it a try.
Like this is when like I was having trouble like trying to figure out exactly like what type of people these were, because again from the opening scene I was like, oh yeah, maybe these are like, I don't know, like hippie kind of like, you know, like free love, man, like this is how we protest by invading like these rich people's homes and kind of just like, you know, doing our dancing and stuff. But then yeah, when it's like, okay, so then wait, are they like Satanists or like again are they just trying to be like whatever is not the norm, that's what we're into?
I don't think the movie thought about it that much, honestly. I think they were just trying to like do something that they would think would be fun because they're bored, and like, you know, obviously Alucard wants to do all this satanic stuff, and they're just like, yeah, it sounds like it's something we'll do once for a laugh, and that's it. A couple of them, I mean, Miss Helsing, she's kind of like, I don't know about this, I don't think I want to do this, but even her boyfriend's like, no, it'll be fun, let's just do it, we'll go to this church, blah blah blah. And it's like, all right, I guess we're doing that. But I mean, it does, it's for all the things you're saying, oh, maybe they're hippies, maybe they're this. Jessica, when she goes back home to see her grandfather and she mentions she's going out again that night, he gets kind of worried, and she's like, hey, like, I want you to know I'm not shooting up with anything, I'm not taking anything, I have half a glass of beer, and I'm not even having sex yet. And there is nothing to tell us that she is lying about any of this. It feels like she's being honest, so it doesn't seem like, yeah, they're this group that are all doing nefarious things that they shouldn't be. If anything, she seems like she's pretty tame by comparison to...
Sure.
To what you'd expect from a group of people this age in the 1970s. So, I don't know. I don't think the movie really puts that much thought into it, other than just it's a group of like misfits who are some of them are more extreme than others and talk the others into doing weird stuff, like crashing a rich person's party or trying to summon Satan.
Which, I mean, honestly, it's not that big a deal. It's just, yeah, it's something I wasn't thinking about. Yeah, I will ask you to just make a quick note for a possible, Patreon episode, but maybe we could do a Black Mass for a bonus sometime.
Okay, but who are we sacrificing?
It's a good point. Well, can't really do this show without any of us, so...
That's right.
Maybe see, like... I don't know. Has David been pulling his weight lately on Ace and everything?
I'll keep it in mind. I'll do like a little like an employee review and see how he's holding up. Yes.
Or unless we want to go, that could be a potential tier for the Patreon. Like if you donate enough money, you can be ritually sacrificed.
Sounds like a winning idea. I don't know why would anyone not want to jump at that chance. Have to be a high tier though, because they won't keep paying it. They'll only pay it once and then they're gone. Yeah. So it has to be a very high amount to make it financially worthwhile. You see,
I don't want to sacrifice anything to Satan though, because I'm not. I don't like him, but maybe we can get like a leprechaun or like a bronze
now you're ruining
situation.
Now you're ruining it. You're ruining it with your stupid ideas. I can't be having this. Oh dear. Anyway, so they go to this church. Jessica sees her great grandfather's tombstone and freaks out a little bit because it feels like oddly suspicious that they're at this place exactly 100 years after his death. Blah blah blah. And yeah, basically they all kind of sit and get a little freaked out as Johnny Alucard has went full throttle and having a cloak. He's saying all this stuff. He's got things ready. He's asking Jessica to come up and be a volunteer for part of the ritual. But there's this other girl named Laura who's got a crush on him who jumps in and says, I'll do it. And he like kind of like cuts his own wrist and bleeds into like a little bowl above her body that's got some of Dracula's ashes in it. It's a whole thing. Honestly, I was starting to feel a little concerned around this part, not because any of this was particularly that bad or anything, but more just because it felt very kind of similar in a lot of ways to, and I thought this was better in this one, was in Taste the Blood of Dracula. That movie was basically about this little group of like male friends who wanted to try something more exciting because they'd done some kind of occulty stuff, but it hadn't been, it had gotten kind of boring. So they did the whole, let's do the ritual with tasting the blood of Dracula, and so this felt very similar to that, where this is the ritual that will bring him back, and there's the one character who's kind of pushing them to do it because he knows what's going to happen. That's kind of like what that was doing as well. But I thought that was a little bit more interesting because the characters were a bit better defined in what they actually wanted out of it. Whereas here it just kind of felt like a bunch of drunk idiots who were just going along with what this guy was saying, and very quickly all start getting freaked out when it gets a bit more serious, and it looks like he's cutting himself into a bowl and whatever else. But would you believe it? Some mist starts to form around the outside at Dracula's grave, and he comes popping out. Once they all run away, they leave Laura behind because they just kind of run in fear, and Dracula kind of appears behind the mist, and then they just go in and Dracula has a nibble on Laura. He's kind of pissed off at first though because he wants the descendant of Van Helsing. He wants to ruin the Van Helsing family, but he has a nibble. He's like, yeah, okay, I am hungry. I'll have some of her. And that kind of like really sets us up for the rest of the movie. And like I said, the most interesting thing to me was probably the fact that this body is found by some kids the next day. The police find her. They also mention that like the bite marks aren't visible because they've kind of like basically mutilated her neck, so it's like you can't see the bite marks. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Actually try to cover their tracks. It doesn't matter for the rest of the movie because they never do it again. But I thought it was an interesting idea the first time it came up. So, yeah,
it doesn't really feel like maybe necessarily the movie they're trying, to go out for, but and like you mentioned it before, like I think there's something interesting that they could have done, like having a more procedural, like cops trying to track him down, and that probably would have been like have to be a different movie altogether. But there's something to that idea that could be fun.
Yeah, instead, what we do get for the next 20 minutes is Jessica saying, I wasn't really comfortable with what happened last night. Where's that girl Laura? Where's she gone? And, Alucard just shows up and says, oh, I took her to the train station. She's going to visit her parents conveniently. And he's like, oh, it was all just a joke. It was fake blood. Oh, nothing happened. Are we all okay? And it's just basically Jessica feeling suspicious and, like, voicing her concerns to her boyfriend, who very quickly is like, oh, just let it go. Let's all forget about it. Let's just forget about all that weird stuff that happened last night. Let's just go to the cinema. Let's go watch a movie and forget that it ever happened. And that's kind of it. So basically the police know who Van Helsing is, as in the one that's alive now, the grandfather, and go to him for advice about the weirdness of this murder because it might be ritualistic or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And something that caught me, one, Van Helsing's very disturbed to find out that the victim is a friend of his granddaughter's. That makes him, that really gets under his skin. But when he's talking to the police, particularly when he goes to see him at the police station, there's the bit where he says, oh, there was this famous vampire and there was proof of this 100 years ago. This Count Dracula, he came to London, he was buried here, blah, blah. But he says something to the effect of, well, he's this great evil. He's, there's this, like immortal being that you can kill him, but if you remove the stake from his heart, he can come back. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? He was a pile of ashes. There was like, what do you mean? There was no heart for a stake to be through, and he was brought back with a satanic ritual with a whole bunch of different things going on. None of it really had anything to do with pulling a stake out of something, because his body goes away when he dies. Like, it's not there. It fades away, and then there's just a pile of ashes. So I'm like, what is this? It's almost like whoever wrote this scene didn't write half the rest of the movie. Right? It's like this dialogue was written without knowing what all the other scenes were going to be. And maybe they were shot first, maybe they were written first, I don't know. But it just didn't line up with anything else that was actually going on.
Yeah, no, it's very strange. I don't know. Add that to the goose section on IMDb, because
I will do no such thing. Other than that, there's another girl in the group that ends up going on a date with Alucard, and it's all just like him taking her back to his place to then like take her to Dracula, I guess, because she turns up dead as well. He dumps her in the river, though. It's around here, though, where Alucard goes to Dracula, and Dracula's pissed. Oh, this is still not the Van Helsing girl. Where's the Van Helsing girl? I want her. And he's like, look, sir, could you, like, bless me with the immortality now? Because it would be easier for me to get her if I was a vampire already. And Dracula tells him to piss off, but then kind of does it anyway, because next time we see him, he's already a vampire. And he also kind of like turns Jessica's boyfriend into a vampire, because Van Helsing puts his granddaughter like with a friend to stay there and keep her out of trouble, and like, you stay here and don't go out for anyone. But the boyfriend shows up and says, oh hey, like we're all being questioned down at the cafe, come with me. But it's a trap. He's already a vampire and takes her, which I mean, there's not been a lot of Dracula turning people into vampires in these Hammer movies, so this kind of stuck out as a little bit different, I guess. But it also kind of felt like, oh, this is a way to not have Christopher Lee for large stretches, because we've got them luring her into a trap as well. And, you know, it does so many tropey things here, but when we actually get to like the climax with her and Dracula and Van Helsing shows up, we'll go back and talk about his side of this, but it just does that thing where she's in a trance the whole time, so she's basically not a character for like the entire third act. She's just like a damsel to be saved who's just staring into space the whole time, and it's not until after Dracula's dead where she snaps out of it and she's like, oh grandfather, you came and saved me. It's like she's effectively been the main character up in, because in the first half of the movie we don't even see that much of Van Helsing. It kind of shifts to him about halfway through, so it feels like she's the main character because she's the one having doubts, she's the one having suspicions about this Alucard. And then for the last third of the movie, she's just a zombie that needs to be saved. So it's not very fulfilling, like, from that perspective of her. And I know it kind of plays, I know this has been kind of like a recurring thing, that, you know, obviously Dracula brainwashes the women into these trances, and that's a part of the character. But, you know, at this point, I'm just sick of seeing it, and it's not, like, that satisfying to see any of it play out.
Right. Yeah, like, I understand, like, from a, you know, plot sense that, yeah, that's something that Dracula would do, but yeah, like story-wise, it doesn't make for like a satisfying, you know, conclusion to the movie, especially because, like you're saying, like, you know, these characters, they feel like, you know, they're so much like, you know, gonna be like the focus, and, you know, especially Jessica, like, oh yeah, this is like the main character, this is the one, you know, we're following, like her and her group of friends, and then it just kind of like slowly, you know, fades and becomes like less and less about them. And yeah, it definitely feels pretty egregious, like to just like have her pretty much be inconsequential to, like, you know, the whole last final act of the movie.
Yeah, no agency is what it comes down to. She just has no agency at all. Like, see if she like woke up like halfway through the scene and was able to fight back a little bit, that'd be one thing, but nah, there's none of that either. Yeah, and like we said, like the other characters in the group just kind of disappear. So, like, yeah, he kills the second girl, but then the goofball characters, there's at least one other woman who kind of disappears as well. You know, it just kind of feels a little bit weirdly undercooked. Like, you gave us this group, so I thought more of them were going to die, but no, some of them just vanish without any reason, really. They aren't important to the plot, so they disappear. And the other half of what's going on in the back half is Van Helsing talking to the police, trying to convince them there's vampires. The police detective, his reaction to all of it's kind of like dull. Not frustrating, just dull, because he kind of was like, well, I can't say to my superior there's a vampire running around. You know, officially, I just can't do that. And Van Helsing's like, well, what about unofficially? Well, unofficially, what do I do? You tell me. You're the vampire expert. And it's like, okay. But the police detective doesn't really get that involved. He just kind of shows up after Van Helsing's already done stuff. The big scene in question is when Van Helsing like finds Alucard's apartment and goes there. And this is after Jessica's already been taken. And he comes in and he finds him and they have a fight. But the sun's starting to come out, which you can't even tell. You only know that because of the dialogue, because it was day for night before. So it's like, it just looks as bright as it was a minute ago, to be honest. But there's a whole fight where there's like sunshine coming through the window and hurting him, and all the rest of it. And eventually he kind of dunks him in running water, and because again, running water is one of the weaknesses of vampires in the Hammer Dracula universe. So he dies in the bathtub, and then the two police officers, right, the detective shows up and sees Alucard in the water dead, and they go to like help Van Helsing, who's like now got like a wound on his arm. He got that during the fight, and they just start patching him up. And all I could think was, aren't you going to like take him in because he's clearly just murdered this other man? Like, because officially you can't just say, oh, he's a vampire, he did the right thing. Like, you've at the very least have to go, like, sure, he's going to say it was self-defense, because it absolutely was, but you just found a dead body here with him, and they talk to him like he's in charge, like, all right, Van Helsing, what's next? What's going on now? What do I do? And he's like, oh, I put this block out and clear that cafe because it might lure them in. Or he's giving orders, and I'm like, in no way does this feel remotely, and I'm not saying it has to feel like super grounded or anything, but the way that he interacts with the police is so far-fetched that you just can't get on board with any of it. It just kind of feels like it's making stuff up out of convenience, out of like, oh, this just doesn't get in the way of what we want to do as the next couple of scenes, so that's what we're going to have it do.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of movies, they would play that up more, and then there would be like, you know, a conflict where it's like, okay, now he's like, you know, in jail, and so he's unable to like come to the rescue or something. So then part of the drama is like, oh, okay, how is he gonna escape or whatever? But yeah, this one it's just like, yeah, well, let's just go the more convenient route.
Yeah, the detective is like, you know, conflicted because he kind of is believing him, but he can't really just like let him out. So he's like sort of wrestling with that, and you can do a bit of an arc there with that character. None of that. None of that at all. Instead, Van Helsing just kind of goes to the church knowing that that's where Dracula's going to show up, hopefully with Jessica, who for some reason has not been bitten yet. They were saving that for night 2 when she can be saved for some reason. But he basically digs a grave and plants a bunch of like crosses that have all got stakes at the top as a trap, and I thought, oh, he's going to cover this up and kind of lure Dracula, you know, into it, right, because Dracula fall in. Instead, when everything goes down and he comes in and says, Dracula, it's me, Van Helsing, and he's like, aha, and he runs after him because he wants revenge because he looks just like the guy who killed him. Dracula literally gets to like the grave, the trap, and the cover like comes off, and he sees that it's a trap. He sees all the stakes and the crosses, and he just kind of gets stun locked, and Van Helsing just kind of pushes him in.
It's like it's all very dull. Like in theory, I like the idea of setting this trap and then him getting impaled by a bunch of like crosses and stuff. Like, yeah, all that stuff is good, but just the way it plays out, it just feels so dull. And yeah, maybe they just had to like do it quick. Like, oh, we don't have time to rehearse a bunch of stunts and stuff, like, or whatever. Like, I understand that, but it just, I don't know, I just really feels like anticlimactic to me. Like, oh, like this is our big fight and showdown, and yeah, it's just ultimately amounts to him just giving like a little like, and then no.
Yeah, the choreography is just terrible. There's nothing interesting about it. The only part of it I liked is that when he does fall in, Van Helsing grabs a shovel just to push him further onto the stake.
Yeah.
And I like that. I thought that was a fun little detail, actually, just pushing him further onto it. Like, yeah, there you go. You see the blood, sort of the paint blood kind of pouring out of him. And I'm like, okay. I like that detail, but everything up until that point was like anticlimactic. Compare this to the end of the last one where he gets impaled with like a metal pole and then gets struck by lightning. That was such a fun way to end that movie. And then this one is just kind of like, like I thought
I slipped.
Well, because I thought at the very least, even if the actual like fall in isn't going to be that good, I thought there'll be at least, we're going to milk some tension of Van Helsing trying to lure him over to it, and like, he almost goes there but doesn't quite. He turned the other way. And we're like, get there, you do. Have them edges a little bit, like, is he going to fall into the trap? But no, none of that.
Or like, the easy, or I mean, we're just like coming up with this off the top of our head, but like I feel like something more satisfying would be like, the trap gets uncovered, Dracula sees it in time and like steps out of the way, and then it becomes a struggle trying to get him in there, and then like Van Helsing is seems like he's run out of options, being defeated, and that's when like Jessica snaps out of it, and then she can give like the final push or whatever. Like then we can still have the cool ending, but there's a bit more tension, and then she gets a bit more agency and stuff. But no,
No.
that's not what we get.
No. And the movie just ends with like her waking up a little bit and then her walking off with Van Helsing, and they're just holding each other. And it comes up saying rest and final peace, because that's what it said on Van Helsing's tombstone. And she's like, why final? Because, don't come back as a vampire. Like, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, like the way the plot plays out in the back half, it was kind of mind-numbing at points, and just kind of felt like we were... there was several parts where I'm like, oh, I thought we were going to play with this idea of the police. Because at one point, after the police talked to Van Helsing and Jessica at their place, we follow them out the building and they say, okay, we're going over to the rest of the friends now to question them. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Let's see what they have to say. Because they presumably are all going to find out that Laura's dead. And I actually couldn't believe that we don't see, like... We see barely any of those characters knowing that Laura's dead for the rest of the movie. Like, I thought, we'll see the group get back together, but they all know Laura's dead, so they all know to be scared of Alucard. But no, we never see them together again. We don't see them get that news. It just feels like it sets up something, and it just kind of withers away into the ether, and it doesn't matter. And it's very strange. So, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, ultimately it's, kind of disappointing. Like I didn't really have specific hopes coming in beforehand, but just based on the opening and stuff, I was like, oh, okay, like I'm kind of digging this, and showing some promise, and then just kind of quickly like goes downhill. Again, it never becomes like horrible. Like I definitely didn't hate it, but it just kind of reaches this like very not even like middle of the road, maybe like slightly less than that, but like it kind of plateaus, and never really does much with it by the end.
But between not using the fact that you've got Dracula in present day by confining him to this one location, which conveniently is an old building that just looks like it's out of his time period, just feels like such a... I don't know, just such a... Like... I don't think this is the case, but if you had told me they filmed this, all his scenes, before they knew it was set in present day, I wouldn't have actually been that surprised. I don't think that's the case, but it wouldn't have shocked me. So it feels like it just doesn't use that, and then the fact that they set up plot threads, they just kind of feel like they wither away. The Dracula only been in a few scenes, just the mind-numbingness of it. It's just really dull, especially in the back half, so... Sadly, I was just hoping it'd be a fun movie, and they just didn't even get close to that, I don't think, once it got into it. So it's a shame. It's a shame. All right, Tim, what are you rating Dracula AD 1972?
I think I'm gonna go with like bouncing between like a 4 and a 4.5, which sounds pretty low. I mean, again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but after kind of like a fun beginning, it kind of quickly goes downhill for me, and it never reaches like horrible territory, but it never does anything super fun or amazing for me. I feel a little bad, but I guess I'll go a straight 4. Again, not the worst thing in the world. But it's a shame, because there was some potential there, and just never really lives up to it.
Yeah, I think I agree with the 4. Honestly, it's watchable enough to a point, and it's not like horrendous, but it just doesn't live up to any of its potential. Dracula feels confined to one area for a few select scenes, and even the stuff they set up with the other characters feels like it kind of just doesn't live up to anything by the end. So, no, sadly it's a bit of a dud, even though it had a lot of promise. So, that is Dracula AD 1972. Next week on Screams After Midnight, we'll be returning to another franchise, I think. It's possible that we might slot in another new release, so if that happens, this might get pushed a week and we'll have a new release instead. But the next thing on the schedule right now is, let me see if I get the title right, Resident Evil Retribution, I think. The fifth one, whatever the fifth one was, that's next.
Okay.
Right. So make sure triple check you're watching the right movie, Tim, before you watch the whole thing. Right. That's important.
All right.
But yeah, we actually just got the title, the logo reveal for the new movie today. Okay. It looks like the Resident Evil logo from the games, pretty much.
Cool.
That's not that exciting. It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, so that's probably getting a trailer soon. But so yeah, fifth Resident Evil movie. Like I said, there's a chance we might slot in another 2026 new release, and that'll get bumped back a week. But if that's the case, it'll just be a week later. But that's Resident Evil Retribution coming up soon. So yeah, but otherwise that is the show, everyone. You can of course support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. It really does help everything out and keeps the show coming. But you get bonus stuff, you get even more streams, which is a sort of segment we do most weeks where we'll do like a little top 5, we'll talk about a news thing or some trailers, or we'll have a discussion about something horror related. And we keep threatening the Resident Evil Requiem review. We'll fit that in at some point soon. Sure. But it's a beefier one, so we're kind of having to wait until the right time. And then most months we also have a bonus episode. We'll do kind of like a silly little 80s slasher movie or something like that as kind of an extra for patrons and YouTube members. So go have a look-see, and thanks to everyone who already does support everything. And check out the other movie podcasts, of course, while you're at it. Sci-Fi Show, Collector's Cut, both of those are worth checking out. So but that is us. That is everything that has been Screams After Midnight. So thank you very much for joining us once again. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.